Welcome back to Arise Prime Time. I'm Charles Anyegolu, and for her perspective on the news and issues that you've heard on this program today and beyond, I'm joined now in the studio by the journalist, political affairs commentator, and Arise news analyst, Dr. Constance Ikokwu. Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Delighted to be here, Charles.
And you heard the brilliant Urechi Kingibe there. What is your assessment of not only the way she spoke, but the task ahead for her?
Yes, I mean, you were able to cover a lot of ground with her, a very articulate woman. And when she said that the time was ripe for me, that's for her. I really reckon with that because I think that she came at the right time, this time around, and she rode on the back of a movement. Of course, there are other reasons why she also won, but the movement was so strong that most people that joined the movement and ran for election on the back of Labour won. She also talked about the women's support, and I could not agree more. I belong to a couple of women groups, and in 2023 elections, there have been lots of work by women to rally around, gather themselves together, and support women across party lines.
So the political awareness is growing, and also awareness of the power that they've got.
Of course. I mean, in the last 8 years, the number of women in government, whether it's appointed or elected, dwindled terribly. It's almost to the zero level. So people are aware that we should do something about it. So women are forming groups and saying, whichever party you run on, it doesn't matter. We will support you. So she's very accurate in her analysis there. And then coming to her work in the FCT, her focus. I mean, she mentioned, quite all right, the necessary things, the health, the education, and all of that. But there's also an area that I think if she's listening, she might want to look into. The indigenous people in Abuja, the Gbagis, have been having a lot of protests over the years. Why? They want a couple of things. They have said that they need a governor. They would want to have the opportunity or the chance to elect their own governor in the FCT. And then they want more Senate and House of Reps seats to also represent them and their needs in the FCT. They have also talked about, I think, a mayoral seat. Well, I think it's mayor or governor.
Yeah.
And then they also talked about appointing indigenes of the FCT as ministers. I mean, I don't think there has been an indigene of the FCT that is a minister. So these are some of the...
Minister of the FCT
Yes,
itself.
Minister of the FCT,
Yeah.
yes.
That's a very good point.
Yes, so I think some of those things, since, it's a woman now, mother of Abuja, I think they probably will have meetings with her and table some of these issues.
I'm sure it will be. I mean, obviously she's I mean, there's so many, it's a 4-year term, so there are a lot of things that will come up, but that's a very important point that you raised there. And just moving beyond her, the first guest we had, Mike O'Mary, talking about issues again around the governorship elections. It's not just in Nasarawa State, there are protests in other places as well. But it just seems like that has become a perennial problem with Nigerian elections. Is that because people like to always say that, they don't accept losing, or is it the fact that the elections are really actually bad?
I think it's the latter. It is the perception that the Electoral Commission hardly ever conducts an election that is acceptable to people, an election that is not manipulated. These are through accusations or allegations. In the past, there have been people that went to court and got back their mandate. So you listen to Mike O'Mary painting a picture of the atmosphere in Nasarawa today. He said that Nasarawa used to be a very peaceful state. I know that. But because of elections and politics by politicians, he talked about the venom being spewed by political opponents against one another, which is not healthy for a state. It's not only in Nasarawa. We have seen that in Lagos and other states, in Rivers as well. This is not healthy at all for the country. So when politicians get to the extent of doing things like that, appealing to the vilest parts of human beings, appealing to ethnic sentiments so that you can win power. And then you turn around after the elections and say, hey, let's unify, let's be one country, let's heal. What is that? You know, I mean, it doesn't work that way. So, I mean, Nasarawa, the other thing is that Nasarawa, what's happening in Nasarawa also happens similarly, I think, in Abia and Enugu, where the results are close. I think Kaduna as well, where the results are close. And then there are particular local governments that were in contention. If the Electoral Commission or INEC has done very good job in the past to convince people that it is working in the interest of the public and it is on the same side with the people, I do not think that a lot of people would not agree with the position or the results that
not
they
accept
see.
The results.
Exactly, accept the results, yes.
Okay, well, let's move away from that slightly, because you touched on the healing process and the calls, I mean, certainly coming from the President-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu. He was one calling for the healing. But we also know that he's traveling abroad. And he's dismissed claims that he's going abroad because of ill health. He says his trip this week to Europe and Saudi Arabia is to rest ahead of his inauguration in May. But his critics have said he looked and sounded frail during the presidential campaign. What do you make of all that?
We have been down this road before. When President Muhammadu Buhari became president, he was literally living in the UK, in London or whichever hospital, to see his doctors. And they always told us that he was on holiday, he went away to rest, and then from there he was going to Saudi Arabia to perform Hajj, and all those kind of stories. And this is one of the reasons why many people were against Bola Tinubu running for president. It's not that he's not a brilliant person. It's not that he didn't do well in Lagos when he was governor. It is the fact that people feared that he might not have the mental rigor or capacity now with his age and maybe illness.
But there's no real evidence to support that, is there?
Well, you saw the campaigns. He looked frail during the campaigns. He was almost stumbling when he was speaking and when he was walking. Sometimes he needed help. So if that was not the case, maybe releasing a doctor's report, to show the state of his. I think we should be doing that actually. Release a doctor's report to people or to the people who you intend to serve, so that we can see that truly you are strong enough to withstand the rigor that that is needed to run this country. So running off, to wherever to rest. I mean, you can go to Obudu Cattle Ranch. There are so many places in Nigeria that you can go off to rest if you really want to rest within the country. But he probably needs medical care as well, and that's why he's going. So, I think,
in fairness to him, he's also going to Saudi Arabia for the lesser Hajj, which is kind of a religious thing that he has to perform.
Yes, that's a good point. But you can rest here and then fly direct to Saudi Arabia, perform the Hajj, and come back.
Well, maybe he's got business in the UK.
He's got what? We are his business now.
Yeah,
so
that's a good point.
The point is that people are wary because of what has happened the last 8 years with President Muhammadu Buhari. The man was hardly on seat. And then there were talks about the presidential jet parked in London, waiting for the president. All these are costs to the taxpayer. Why should the taxpayer pay all this money to make Aso Rock a rehabilitation home or a retirement home or a hospital? Why should we do that in a country with over 200 million people that have enough strong, able-bodied men and women with capacity to run us? People don't want to hear that anymore.
On that note, I want to thank you very much indeed. Dr. Constance Ikokwu is a journalist, of course, political affairs commentator and Arise News analyst. Always good to talk to you.
Thanks for having me.
That's it for this edition of Arise Prime Time. Join us again tomorrow from me and the entire team here in Abuja and Lagos. Bye-bye, and thank you for watching.